no such thing as a conversion, right? It's a continuing, ongoing surrender to Jesus Christ, and discovering all the baggage we bring with us, our pride, and all the other issues that stand in the way.
I think it was Pope John Paul II that said, if it's been more than a day since your last conversion, it's been too long. And, you know, and we all have pride or a good Celtic temper like I do, or, you know, the things that we struggle with, that's what our pilgrimage is all about, is getting ourselves to be pure so that we can see God when we die.
And the beauty of our new Pope Francis is this emphasis on humility and simplicity. Not that Benedict or John Paul were also equally as committed to that. Of course they were, but I think with our new Holy Father, there's this true reminder of what that means, a continual growth in humility. Now, rather than have you go through, as I usually do when I have a returning guest, your whole journey, if I could, let's assume right now that there's a few folk out there watching that are right now where you were. What is the issue that really awakened you to the Catholic Church? Because my guess is you weren't that open to the Catholic Church before.
No. In fact, I'd say 2 years before I came in, it was the furthest thing from my mind. You know?
Right.
And for me, there was really two issues. Number one was the issue of authority. And it is just a fact that every Protestant pastor is basically the Pope, at least in the denominations that I was familiar with. They're very free church, Baptist free church. And what you hear in one Baptist church and what you hear down the road at the other Baptist church can be two totally, entirely different things because of the pastors and how they're reading Scripture. And I realized that Scripture alone wasn't enough.
Because you were in seminary studying this.
Yes.
So you were not just...
No, this was after I was in seminary that I came to this realizing. But I went to Trinity Seminary. Right. And after I got out and got into the real world, realized that just wasn't enough. Yeah. But the thing was the Eucharist. And it came to me through John chapter 6. Reading John chapter 6, which was a passage, in my recollection, I don't ever remember preaching on it, and I don't ever remember hearing a sermon on it. Now, I might have at some point, but it's not the favorite passage of your average Baptist preacher. And I remember struggling with John chapter 6 and finally coming to the conclusion that the Catholic Church really had to be right about that. And it was months, Marcus, as you know, that when we're dealing with these issues, it takes months, sometimes years. But I remember the day that I woke up in the morning and I turned to my wife, Colleen, and I said, Colleen, I believe. And we'd been talking so much about it and struggling with this issue so much that she knew exactly what I believed. That I believed that the Eucharist really was the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ. And that 4 blocks away at St. Anastasia, he was really, truly present sacramentally. And that he wasn't at the Baptist Church. And at that point, I had left the ministry. Had been gone because of a crisis of faith for several years. But I was still a deacon at the Baptist Church. And I was still teaching the adult Sunday school class, which is that's the greatest gig in any Baptist church, because you get to say whatever you want to, and they're not paying you, so they're just thankful that you're there, and you have all the most committed adults in the church are there at Sunday school, you know. So it was a great experience. But I remember shortly after that time, I was helping serve communion, and the pastor asked me to pray over the bread, and I was praying over the bread, and we put them in trays. And then we would pass the trays. It was a little different, but we called it communion. And I was praying over that with 300 Baptists listening to me pray. And I realized at that moment, number one, I realized I couldn't do this anymore. And number two, I realized that the Catholic priest at St. Anastasia agreed that what I held in my hand was only a symbol. And all of the Baptists agreed that this was only a symbol. It would never be anything other than a symbol.
Right.
But what I realized is that what he held in his hands down at St. Anastasius was not a symbol only. It really was the sacramental body blood of Christ.
Let me grab this well